Let's talk about the unit of work pattern. So what exactly is a unit of work? Well, a unit of work is essentially just an object that keeps track of changes that you want to submit to a database. So it's going to keep track of new objects that you create in your application. It's going to keep track of dirty objects, so objects that need to be updated in the database, and objects that you want to remove from the database. And what you're going to do is you're going to tell the unit of work about these objects, and then when you're done telling the unit of work about these objects, you can commit those changes and submit all those changes to the database in one connection. So the main benefit of this pattern is you're not going to be doing a bunch of small database transactions that are spread out. You're going to save your database transaction for the very end, and you're going to do all your transactions at once to the database. So it's going to be a little bit more efficient. Now there's actually two ways that you can implement this. So there is object registration, where you pass your unit of work to your domain objects, and then say in the constructor you would register a new object to create in the database, and then whenever a field or property changes on that object, you would register the object as dirty with the unit of work so that the new values will be updated in the database. And then the other implementation of the unit of work is with caller registration. So with caller registration, what's going to happen is your callers, so say your program.cs, just your main method, it's going to have its own unit of work, and it's going to create objects on its own and register those with the unit of work, register dirty objects with the unit of work, and tell the unit of work what objects it wants to be removed. And then once it's done with all that, it'll commit those changes. So hopefully these UML diagrams kind of helped you envision how you can implement both of these different ways, caller registration and object registration. But in this video, we're going to focus on caller registration. So let's actually implement this pattern, and let's start off by, I should start off by introducing the domain that we're dealing with. So same as the other videos in this tutorial, we're just doing a library, so there's different types of media in the library, and they have an ID, a name, and a media type, such as a book, magazine, and movie. So back in our project here, let's actually start off by creating a new folder, and I'm just going to call this services, just a general name here. And inside here, I am going to have my library unit of work. So this is our unit of work. And let's go ahead and make this public, and let's implement the typical unit of work methods. So we're going to have a method to register a new object, and that's going to take in the new media that we want to register. Let's go ahead and import the media model. And we're also going to have a method to register a dirty media so that whenever we commit, it'll update the new media values. And then we're lastly going to have a method to register a removed media object so that it'll get deleted from the database when we commit. And there actually is another method you could have. You could have a register clean method that would remove a media from the dirty list, or essentially unregister a dirty media, but we are not going to be implementing that in this tutorial. And then once we're done registering, we are going to have a commit method that'll make the changes in the database based on what we have registered. So let's set up how this is going to work. So when we register a new media, it's basically just going to go into a list of media, and we're going to track the new medias that need to be created in the database. So in this register new method, all we're going to do is say new medias.add media. But before we can do that, we need to make sure that this media can be added to the new medias. So we're going to have an if statement here, and we need to check to make sure that the ID of the media equals 0, because if it didn't equal 0, that means it already exists in the database, it already has an ID, it's already registered, so it's not actually a new media. We also need to make sure that the new medias list doesn't already contain the media that we want to add. And we also need to make sure that the object has not been registered as dirty or removed. So to check that, we're going to have two more lists here. We're going to have dirty medias and removed medias that we are going to be tracking. So we need to make sure this new media isn't in any of these lists, because if it is, that means it already exists in the database. And that's not what we're doing here. We're registering a new media in the database, creating it. So let's make sure it's not in any of these lists either. So dirty medias and removed medias. And if it passes all of this validation, then we're going to add it. So obviously here, this is just an example. You might want to throw exceptions if it doesn't pass any of these validations, or maybe return a boolean for success. But for this example, we're just going to make this a void method and assume it works. So we're registering a new media. Let's check out this register dirty method. So we are going to get a media from this method that we want to register as dirty. So we're going to add it to the dirty medias list. Let's go ahead and add it, but again, we need to make sure that it passes validation. So in this case, it's going to be a similar if statement actually, but the only difference is we need to make sure that it actually has an ID. So the ID cannot be 0, because if the ID was 0, that means it's not even in the database, and we're going to run this update on a media that doesn't even exist. And then same thing as before, we need to make sure it's not in any of the other lists. Of course, I could refactor this into one method, but for this example, I'm just going to copy and paste that if statement. And there we go. Now we are registering a media as dirty if it passes all of this validation. And last but not least, we need to register a media as removed. So we're going to get the media from the method and add it to the removed medias list. But again, we need to do some validation. So the first thing we're going to do actually is see if it's already in the new medias list. Because if it's in this new medias list, we actually don't even have to add it to this removed medias list. Because this removed medias list is going to make changes on the database. And if it's only in the new medias list, then the object actually isn't already in the database. So we can just remove it from this list and be done. So the object will essentially never exist in the database. So what we're going to do is see if we successfully remove this media from the new medias list. So we're going to try and remove it. And if we are successful, then we're just going to go through the method and not do anything else. But if we're unsuccessful, if it wasn't in the new objects list, then we need to actually add it to this removed medias list. So let's move that in there, but now we need to do some validation. So this is going to be similar to the register dirty. We need to make sure the ID does not equal 0, so let's go ahead and do that, because if it equaled 0, then there'd be nothing in the database to actually remove. So let's validate that. And of course, we need to make sure that it's not already in the removed medias list. And while I'm doing this, let's move that in there. I actually see a bug real quick. This should be is not. So if removed medias does not contain the media, let's update that for these methods. Okay. And last but not least, we need to handle if this media that we're registering as removed is already in the dirty medias list, because if it's in the dirty medias and we go to commit, we're going to run an update on a media that we want to remove. So what we can do is just say dirty medias.remove the media, so that we don't even bother updating it in the database, because it's just going to be removed anyways. So now a caller can use these objects to register new media, register dirty media that they want to update, and register removed media that they want to delete from the database. And once they are done registering all of the media, they want to commit those changes. So what we're going to do is open up a connection to our database, and based on the new medias list, the dirty medias list, and the removed medias list, we are going to make changes in the database. And that's the big benefit of the unit of work. So all of our database transactions are going to occur in this commit method. They're not going to occur whenever we want to register a removed object, or in any of these other register methods, it's all going to happen in the commit statement. So another benefit of that is that we only need to open one SQL connection. So let's go ahead and create a SQL connection, install the SQL client package, and let's create this connection. And to do that, we are actually going to need a connection string. So let's get that from the constructor. Let me put that in a field, and let's generate a constructor for that. There we go. So we're going to create a new SQL connection for our connection string, and then let's go ahead and open that connection so that we can actually use it. And once we have this connection, we are going to insert the new objects into the database. We are going to update the dirty objects, and we are going to delete the removed objects. So let's go ahead and generate methods that do this stuff. There we go. Insert new, delete removed. So let's go ahead and actually implement these methods now. So we're just going to do a for each, and we're going to iterate over our removed medias. So these are the medias that we want to delete in the database. And what we're going to do is just create a new SQL command that we want to run against the database. And for this command, we're going to need our connection. So let's get that as a parameter to this method. So let's copy this connection, get it from the method parameters. So we're going to have to pass it in here. And let's go ahead and do that for all of these methods, because they are going to have to use the connection in order to database commands. So let's add those parameters to the method. And there we go. Now we can use the SQL connection. So with this connection, we are going to create a command. And this command is going to have command text. And all we're going to be doing is a simple delete. So delete from media where ID equals an ID parameter. Let's go ahead and set that parameter. So parameters.add with value. We're setting the ID parameter to the media.id, which is each media ID in our removed medias. And now that we're doing that, we can execute this command as a non-query because we don't care about the result. So that is our delete removed. So we're going to go through all of the removed medias that we registered and just delete them from the database. And once we're done with that, we can actually clear the removed medias list because they are all removed. Okay, so that is our delete removed. Let's go ahead and do similar operations in our update dirty and insert new. So for update dirty, I'm actually going to just copy this and make changes as we go. So we're going to iterate over our dirty medias this time. Going to create a command again. We are going to be executing a non-query, and then once we're done updating all of our dirty medias, we are going to clear our list of dirty medias. So all we have to change here is this command text. So what we're going to do this time is run an update. We're going to update the media table, and we're just going to set all of the columns to the new values on the media. So we're going to set the name, the type to a type parameter that we put in, and we're going to do this where the ID is equal to the current media ID that we are iterating over. So we're going to have to set parameters again. We're going to set the ID to the current media ID that is dirty, and let's set the name parameter to the media name and the type parameter to the media type, and we're gonna have to cast this to an int, so because this is an enum, and we're gonna have to store it as an int in the database. So that's our update dirty. We iterate over all the dirty medias and update them in the database. And last but not least, we just have insert new. So same thing. I'm actually gonna copy this again, and this time we're dealing with our new medias, and once we're done, we're going to clear out our list of registered new medias, and now we just need to update this command text. So all we're going to do is insert into the media table the values name and type. Not going to be inserting ID because we want the database to generate that ID. So we're going to output the inserted ID, so the new ID of the media. And the values that we're going to insert are the name and the type. So let's add those parameters. I'm actually just going to copy them from up here. And there we go. And this time we are going to be executing a scalar like that, because the scalar returns the first column of the first row in the result set, which in our case is the new media ID. So let's go ahead and set that on the media. So media ID equals the result of this query, and we're going to cast that to an int because it's going to be the new ID. So that is our unit of work. So what's going to happen is we register media through all these methods, register them as new, dirty, removed. Whenever the caller wants to commit all of those changes to the database, it will take a look at all of the media that we have registered and make the correct database operations based on our registered media. So let's go ahead back into, what is this over here? Let me delete that. I don't know what that is. Alright, let's go back to our program.cs. Let me grab a connection string real quick so we can test this out. There we go. And let's create a unit of work. So this is our library unit of work. Let's import that. Just call it unit of work. And give it our connection string. And let's try out some stuff. So let me look at the media table right now. Let's go ahead and first create a new media. So we're going to tell our unit of work to register a new media. Let's import media. And we're going to give this a name of test movie. And we're going to give it a type of media type dot movie. So we're going to register that new media, and we're also going to let's register something as dirty. So we're going to create a new media, and what we're going to do is set the ID to a media that already exists. So let's register Cat in the Hat as dirty, so the ID is 1 for that. The name is Cat in the Hat, and the type, we're going to change the type, okay? So the media type is going to be a book this time. So this might be a little bit weird because we're creating a new media and then registering it as dirty, but basically what we're doing is setting the media where the ID is 1 to all of these new values. That is what this is doing. Of course, it'll make more sense if you were getting your objects from the database first and then registering them as dirty. But in this case, we're just testing this out, so we're just going to create it in memory first. And last but not least, let's go ahead and register a removed media. So a new media, and we're going to register the media with an ID of, let's remove movie 5, so ID 2004, and we're just going to register that as removed. And again, this is weird too because we don't set those other values, because our register removed is all based on this ID. This ID means everything, so all it's going to do is remove an entity from the database where the ID equals this. So it doesn't need any of the other information. So now that we have done all of this, let's go ahead and commit our changes. And let's put a breakpoint right there, and let's go ahead and run this. So there we go, we hit our breakpoint. Let's look at our unit of work. So we have a new media, we have removed media, and we have dirty media. But if we look at our database, nothing has changed yet because we haven't committed. So let's go ahead and commit all those changes. And there we go. If we refresh the database, we have a new test movie. Cat in the Hat is now a book, and we removed that old, I believe the old movie that was in there with an ID of 2004. So as you can see, we registered all these changes and then we committed the changes. So we didn't have to hit the database every time we wanted to create a new object or update an object or remove an object. We saved it all for this commit method, and it's just more efficient because we were able to do that in one connection. So that is the unit of work pattern. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, concerns, or criticisms, be sure to leave them below in the comment section. But other than that, thank you for watching, and be sure to leave a like or subscribe for more. Thank you.